Jump at the sun. When I began to consider my topic for today, first Sunday of Black History Month, I did not have to ponder long before deciding to focus this morning's message on my favorite author, Zora Neale Hurston. I became acquainted with the work of Zora Neale Hurston several years ago. I was teaching at Groves High School in Savannah, and on a Friday afternoon, I had planned to leave for a 4-hour road trip immediately after school. At lunch, I stopped by the library and perused the selection of audiobooks, looking for something to keep me entertained on my drive. The title, Their Eyes Were Watching God, caught my eye, so I checked it out. And as I began my drive, I was immediately captivated by the vivid portrayal of life in a small Central Florida town founded by African Americans. I was even more amazed to learn that the town depicted in this fictional novel was not fictional. And although the events and dialogues were products of the author's imagination, they were an accurate portrayal of life in Eatonville, Florida, the first incorporated township in the United States founded by African Americans, and the hometown of the author, Zora Neale Hurston. My fascination with this novel and author drove me to explore everything about Zora Neale Hurston. Upon discovering a grant for educators to delve deeply into Hurston's life and work in Eatonville, Florida, I eagerly applied and was fortunate to receive a grant. That summer, I joined fellow Zora enthusiasts for an intensive study. For 12 hours each day, we immersed ourselves in the teachings of the most prominent Hurston scholars. We explored Eatonville, listening to the stories of town elders. Our journey took us from Eatonville to Fort Pierce, where we visited the home where Hurston lived during her later years and the nursing home where she passed away. The culmination of our pilgrimage was a visit to the cemetery, where I placed a pack of Pall Mall cigarettes, Hurston's brand of choice, before a gravestone that reads, "The Genius of the South." By the week's end, we had acquired a wealth of knowledge about this fascinating author, though we were all well aware that we had only scratched the surface. Hurston was born in Notasulga, Alabama in 1891, but throughout most of her life, when she was asked where and when she was born, she chose to lie about both. In her memoir, Dust Tracks on a Road, Hurston claims Eatonville, Florida as the town of her birth. She wrote, "I was born in a Negro town. I do not mean by that the black backside of an average town. Eatonville, Florida is, and was at the time of my birth, a pure Negro town charter, mayor, council, town marshal town." While not born in Eatonville, her family did relocate there early in her life. Despite the inaccuracy of it being her birthplace, her description of Eatonville, Florida was spot on. Growing up in Eatonville proved to be pivotal in the shaping of Hurston's independent spirit. In Eatonville, Hurston thrived in an environment that stood as a testament to the resilience and self-sufficiency of the Black community. The town provided her with a haven of acceptance and opportunity. In this nurturing enclave, she experienced the childhood free from the demeaning constraints imposed by systemic racism. Unlike many of her contemporaries, growing up in Eatonville meant never having to navigate the demoralizing experience of segregated facilities or the dehumanizing impact of prejudiced policies. Her formative years were filled with the vibrant colors of cultural pride, a stark contrast to the harsh Black and white divisions imposed by segregated society. Eatonville was not just a physical space for Hurston, it was a realm where her identity could blossom, a sanctuary that shielded her from the storm of discrimination, allowing her to emerge as a voice that challenged the status quo and sought to dismantle the very structures that had, for too long, sought to diminish the humanity of Black individuals. But even in Eatonville, not everyone appreciated the inquisitive nature and outspoken voice of a young Black girl. One of those individuals being Zora Neale Hurston's father. Reverend John Cornelius Hurston, who served as pastor of one of the town's 2 churches and 3-term mayor of Eatonville, believed in the importance of all his children receiving an education, including his daughters, as long as they used their education the way he saw fit. Nevertheless, his authoritative demeanor clashed with his daughter's fierce iconoclasm, and as a result, Zora found herself frequently at odds with her father. But whenever her autonomy stoked the ire of her father, Zora found a refuge in the loving embrace of a fiercely protective and adamantly supportive mother. Hurston wrote, "Papa did not feel so hopeful. Let well enough alone. It did not do for Negroes to have too much spirit. He was always threatening to break mine or kill me in the attempt. My mother was always standing between us. She conceded that I was impudent and given to talking back, but she didn't want to squinch my spirit too much for fear that I would turn out to be a mealy-mouthed rag doll by the time I got grown. Behind Mama's rocking chair was a good place to be in times like that. Papa was not going to hit Mama." But the best description of the love and support Hurston received from her mother is found in what is probably the most famous of Hurston's words, the words that inspired this message. Mama exhorted her children at every opportunity to jump at the sun. We might not land on the sun, but at least we would get off the ground. I've read this quote too many times to count since I was first introduced to Hurston's work. I've quoted it to inspire myself and to encourage others. When I was curriculum director here in Bullitt County, I even painted it on the wall of my office. Each time I read it, however, I overlooked three crucial words: at every opportunity. It was not until I began to write this message that I asked myself, why did Lucy Hurston not only exhort this to her children, but why did she do so at every opportunity? I am just speculating here, but I wonder if maybe Lucy Hurston knew or maybe suspected that she would not always be there to protect her children. That one day when Zora spoke out of turn and Reverend Hurston's wrath was kindled, Mama's rocking chair would be empty. Lucy Hurston died when Zora was 13 years old. Mama died at sundown and changed a world, Hurston wrote. That hour began my wanderings. Within a year after her mother's passing, her father remarried and sent Zora away to school in Jacksonville, but he only paid her tuition for part of the year, leaving his 14-year-old daughter to scrub floors in order to finish the year. Hurston then bounced from place to place, living with whatever relatives would have her. During this time, she longed for books and education, envying the sight of children going to and from school. Even as she transitioned into adulthood, she continued to yearn for knowledge. Despite the hardships Hurston faced, Lucy Hurston's words never departed, seemingly calling from the grave and encouraging her daughter to keep on jumping at the sun. Eventually, Hurston found herself living and working in Baltimore, where she learned of a high school she could attend tuition-free. There was only one problem. At age 26, Hurston was told she was too old to attend the school. Determined to have the education she had longed for since her mother's death, she took a jump at the sun. If being a 26-year-old born in 1891 prevented her from attending school, she reapplied, this time as a 16-year-old born in 1901. Successfully passing as 10 years younger, Hurston was able to attend school and earn her high school diploma. After accomplishing this milestone, Hurston continued to jump at the sun with even more vigor, attending Howard University and then Barnard College. On a side note, even after completing her education, Hurston continued to claim that she was born in 1901 until she became interested in a man 10 years younger than her fictional age. From that point forward, she was Zora Neale Hurston, born in 1911. This indomitable spirit didn't merely manifest in her pursuit of formal education, it extended into her work, first in the world of anthropology, where Hurston would make groundbreaking contributions. Hurston, fueled by an insatiable curiosity about human culture and a passion for storytelling, would emerge as a pioneering figure in the field of anthropology. Her jump at the sun led her to immerse herself in the study of folklore, ethnography, and the rich tapestry of African American traditions. In her anthropological work, Hurston leaped into the heart of communities, passionately documenting stories, traditions, and unique cultural expressions of African American life. Unlike traditional anthropologists who attempted to observe human behavior as a third party standing on the sidelines, she didn't observe from a detached distance. Instead, she realized the only way to authentically capture human behavior was to blend in with the people she observed. Hurston's methodology was distinct, She didn't merely study people, she engaged with them, listened to their stories, and brought their voices to life through her work. She understood that to truly understand a community, one had to immerse oneself in its rituals, dances, and its narratives. Her work wasn't merely about documenting. It was about preserving the soul of a people, making their stories resonate beyond the confines of time and place. While others in the field of anthropology traveled to distant lands, Hurston's journey took her to the rural South, where she conducted extensive fieldwork collecting folklore, songs, and tales. She documented the everyday life of individuals often marginalized and overlooked. Through her meticulous research, she sought to dismantle stereotypes and present a more authentic portrayal of African American life. In her groundbreaking anthropological work, Hurston wasn't content with simply describing. She aimed to celebrate and honor the richness of African American culture. She believed in the power of storytelling as a means of empowerment and resistance. In doing so, she not only contributed to the academic field of anthropology, but also played a crucial role in reshaping the narrative around African American identity. During the Harlem Renaissance, Hurston stood out not only as a writer, but as a maverick challenging the established norms of the literary elite. While her contemporaries were often focused on addressing social issues and advocating for racial equality, Hurston's storytelling was deeply rooted in the cultural richness of the Black experience. Her magnum opus, Their Eyes Were Watching God, departed from the prevailing themes of protest literature. Instead, it delved into the intricacies of individuality and the complex journey of a Black woman, Janie Crawford, through love, loss, and self-discovery. This narrative choice not only set her apart from others in the Harlem Renaissance, but it led to a rift with some prominent figures of the movement. Hurston's insistence on capturing the authentic voices of the rural South and a refusal to conform to the expectations of her contemporaries resulted in some strained relationships. Some critics within the Harlem Renaissance, striving for a unified voice against racial injustice, viewed Hurston's work as deviating from the collective struggle. Yet she remained unapologetic in her commitment to portraying the diversity and uniqueness within the Black experience. From her childhood and throughout her professional career, Hurston's insistence on doing things her way angered those who unsuccessfully sought to control her. In her final years, this literary maverick who spent her life jumping at the sun found herself seemingly grounded in the harsh reality of poverty and neglect. Ousted by the literary elite, Hurston did not retire to a life of luxury, living off the royalties of her book sales. Instead, she lived out her final days in a tiny home in Fort Pierce, Florida. She worked as a maid until she was asked to teach at a local high school, which she agreed to do with a stipulation that she be allowed to smoke cigarettes while teaching. She died in abject poverty at the age of 69 or 49, depending on whom you ask. To most observers, it would appear as though her life's journey had led her to a forgotten place, lying in an unmarked grave in Fort Pierce, Florida. Yet the tale of Zora Neale Hurston does not end with the perceived failure of her later years. Instead, it takes an unexpected turn toward resurrection and recognition. In the early 1970s, author Alice Walker came across the now out-of-print novel, Their Eyes Were Watching God, or then out-of-print novel, Their Eyes Were Watching God. In her essay entitled In Search of Zora Neale Hurston, she describes wading through an overgrown, snake-infested graveyard until she located Hurston's grave and in a symbolic act of remembrance, placed a headstone inscribed with the words, "The Genius of the South." Alice Walker's recognition marked the beginning of Zora Neale Hurston's posthumous revival, prompting a renewed interest in Hurston's literature. Though never appreciated in life, Hurston's impact extended far beyond her time, as subsequent generations rediscovered the depth and brilliance of her storytelling. Today, she is recognized as a pioneer who defied conventions and illuminated the diverse facets of Black identity. Hurston's novels, particularly Their Eyes Were Watching God, are now essential readings in literature courses that continue to spark discussions about the complexities of Black identity, feminism, and self-discovery. Her influence transcends the realm of literature, reaching into the broader cultural discourse on race, identity, and the importance of preserving diverse narratives. As we reflect on Zora Neale Hurston's life, it becomes evident that her journey, although marred by periods of neglect and hardship, was far from a failure. Her ability to jump at the sun, to navigate the intricacies of race, identity, and culture with unapologetic authenticity continues to inspire, challenge, and uplift, proving that even when it seemed she had landed on the ground, Zora Neale Hurston's spirit soared high, immortalized in the pages of her writings and the hearts of those who continue to explore the rich tapestry of her legacy. Maybe you're wondering what this means to us this morning. Why am I delivering what seems to be a lecture that is more suited to a classroom than a pulpit? I believe there are some parallels between Hurston's and our journey. Hurston heard lots of voices during her lifetime. That's not the way anthropology is supposed to be done, they said. That's not the way a Black woman should write, they scolded. But the voice that overrode all those was the voice of her mother, Lucy Hurston, exhorting her at every opportunity to jump at the sun. Perhaps you faced similar criticism in your life. You might have encountered skeptical looks when describing our religious community, a church that's not exclusively Christian, a church where atheists feel welcome, a religion that doesn't dictate your belief, but focuses on justice and equity in this life. That's not how religion is supposed to be done, right? Yet instead of heeding those voices telling us the right way to practice religion, we listen to an inner voice that tells us to keep jumping at the sun. Considering the challenges of our religious movement faces, declining membership, predominantly older congregations, to many, our future might seem uncertain. But I am optimistic that even when we feel we have landed face first on the ground, the impact of our collective efforts may be reaching heights we don't yet recognize. Like Hurston, may we write our own narrative, one that defies norms and challenges preconceptions. Let us carry forward the flame of inspiration and embrace the call to jump at the sun. For in doing so, we contribute to a story that transcends our time and resonates through the ages. Amen, and may it be so. And we can continue to reflect on the message as we listen to We Are by Dr. Issei Barnwell.